Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you on a Thursday morning with one Adam Ship, my money share, as we have one major holiday in our rearview mirror and we're heading towards New Year's Eve. Adam, anything exciting planned for the final holiday before we go into a long, cold winter?
No, I don't really do New Year's Eve that hard. That and the day before Thanksgiving are, to me, like the two most overrated nights to go out. It's just, unless you're like in a city and there's like stuff to do, but not living in a city, you just end up with like kind of shitty dive bars, really crowded, and it's just kind of miserable.
There you go. So your regular watering hole you'd prefer to go to when it's just the regulars and not the riffraff that the holiday brings in.
Yeah, I mean, give me like a normal Friday night where it's like kind of crowded, but I can like move around and talk to people, and I don't know. I hate New Year's Eve and I hate the night before Thanksgiving.
All right. Well, let's see. I probably won't do anything exciting myself. The Washington Huskies, my alma mater, are playing in the January 1st bowl game, so I will want to watch that, get together with some friends. But, yeah, festivities and New Year's for me, not the same. Not the same. I did go to, for the year 2000, I was down on the Las Vegas Strip for that New Year's. That was
probably fun.
It was fun. It was crazy. It was wild. Randomly ran into my cousin who I knew was in Vegas, but we didn't have like really good cell phones back then. So you could like leave a voice message and at best, but ended up running into her around 250 other thousand people there. I bumped into her. So we hung out for the rest of the night. But anyway, that was cool. If you've never been, you go look at the Strip. Up and down the Strip, they set off fireworks from the roofs of all the main hotels simultaneously in some sort of festive event with music and those sorts of things, or at least they have the couple times I've been there on New Year's Eve. Let's get into the games. Adam, we've got 5. That's a little more than we normally do. I think that's probably enough to support a buy position run through these. Of course, you will get the DFS strategy show around 9:15 or so. If you want a full game-by-game breakdown, that will be Josh Engelman and Dave Loughran. As Adam is sequestered away writing the deep dive, all that stuff is behind the paywall, the written stuff anyway. But you can see on our YouTube channel that show. If you want to get a look, a 7-day free trial of all Osmo Premium content, use the promo code EARLYBIRD when you sign up for any subscription. So if you pick one that has the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, you will get that. You'll get Slack. You'll get everything. And you won't be billed for 7 days. So if you try it out for a couple days and you're like, yeah, I don't really like it, you can cancel it. You'll still have the subscription through those 7 days, but you don't have to worry about hitting your credit card because we want you to try it out without any risk. Adam, 7 games here. Couple injury notes. Of course, LeBron James suffered a strained groin, so he is allegedly day-to-day, but I suspect he'll probably be out for about a week. That is just me guessing. We have James Harden, who is questionable. He has a bruised calf. And then that was really only the new injuries that we have. We still, of course, have Chris Paul's out. Cousins is a couple weeks away. Marvin Bagley III is probably 10 to 14 days away. JaVale McGee has not yet played. I had not, when he was in the hospital, I thought, oh, it was just the flu. He had pneumonia. So he's listed as questionable. He is, I think, back with the team. This game is in Sacramento. I'm not sure if he's traveling with them, but keep that in mind. Aaron Baines had surgery. So he's out. Mitchell Robinson is probably going to be out for another week to 10 days. He's been dealing with the sprained ankle. I think that covers all of the main stuff. So let's get on over here to point guard, Adam, and I will just kick it over to you. We've got Steph Curry going against Portland, Damian Lillard in that same matchup coming back. We know those guys have had some spirited games against each other in the past. What do you got with this point guard position?
Yeah, always fun when those two play. So Curry going up against Portland, only $8,900 too, coming off of a terrible game against the Lakers. But I still really like him, especially at that price tag. I'm attempting to pull up Popcorn Machine now just to double check the Christmas Day game, but I know going into that game, Golden State had changed their rotation, so that Steph Curry and Kevin Durant's minutes were staggered, which is good for both of them. You get obviously more usage when the other is not on the floor. And Steph Curry had taken over the Klay Thompson role starting the second and fourth quarters. That was the case on Christmas Day as well. So I really, really, really like Curry as his price tag is falling. Hasn't had a blow-up game yet, and the change in rotation is something that almost certainly will go overlooked by a lot of people, but it makes a pretty big difference in his projection, by a few points. So I think Curry's a really, really good play.
Do you think they're having to kind of separate Green and Curry a little bit more? Well, one, because good God, they've had more losses to this point by Christmas than under any other year under Steve Kerr. But two, Draymond Green's lack of offense is just really hurting things. I mean, it makes sense to have your two MVPs on your team separated a little bit here, and it makes sense that Klay is the one that it comes at the expense of. But do you think this is a Draymond Green result?
I think it actually could be a Klay Thompson result because Klay's been in a pretty bad shooting slump lately. And it goes with what you were saying, though. Like, the rotation had been Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. And then, normally Draymond and Klay starting the second and fourth quarters. But with Klay shooting as bad as he is, and then Draymond, not really being an offensive threat, suddenly that second unit really has no offensive firepower if Klay's not hitting his shots. So I didn't see an actual reason given for it, but that would be my best guess, is that, Curry just is the better offensive player, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. He can handle offense and the distribution. And of course, with Kevin Durant, grumbling here and there that they pass too much because he's one of the best isolation basketball players out there and one of the best pure scorers and most efficient guys. So maybe this is a subtle way of making a lot of people happy, kind of taking the pressure off Klay and Draymond Green there. Dropping down a little bit on our pricing sheet, we run into a matchup between Ben Simmons and Donovan Mitchell. There's a lot of position flexibility here on DraftKings, so we'll just kind of count those guys as point guards since they're squaring off against each other for this perspective. Do you give one of those guys the edge? Because they're both dynamic young players, but they're going to be going to the hoop with some dynamic centers protecting the rim.
Yeah, I mean, Simmons is nice just because he's not one-dimensional like Donovan Mitchell is. Obviously, a price difference between the two as well. But if I have to choose between the two, like which one I'm more comfortable with, it's going to be Simmons just because of the rebounding and the assists, whereas Donovan Mitchell, very scoring dependent. It is worth pointing out, though, that Philadelphia, they're probably their biggest weakness defensively, or where they've given up some huge games this year, is to ball dominant guards who look to score. So obviously Ricky Rubio has the ball in his hands a lot, but so does Donovan Mitchell. You could certainly see, I think, a bigger game based on matchup here for Mitchell, just the way he sets up against this team.
All right. Last thing I wanted to touch on, we did mention that LeBron James is out. That means we've got a lot of facilitation duties that are going to be up for grabs. We know that Lonzo Ball is going to be there. We have Rajon Rondo, who had a very nice game on Christmas Day. He's back from injury and has been getting his minutes up to around 20 per game. So he is someone that's nice at 5,200. And then you've got Josh Hart, who you and I have talked about a few times when the Lakers were dealing with the rash of their other injuries, just saying, wow, his opportunities in game is fantasy perspectives has changed because he's not getting nearly as many rebounds as he once was because Brook Lopez is no longer there, leaving a void in that. But Josh Hart at 4,300 on DraftKings, point guard, shooting guard eligible, amongst that trio of potential Lakers value at first blush. Does anybody stand out?
I mean, the minutes should be there for Hart, but it's, again, just a matter of, what happens. It wouldn't be surprising if Lance Stevenson gets more run. He didn't really against Golden State, but with LeBron out, you would like, another ball handler out there, another guy that can create, and Stevenson certainly can. So I think that, there's a chance you get maybe at least an opportunity for Stevenson. And then if he plays poorly, he goes back to the bench. If he plays well, he gets more minutes. So it's someone at least to keep in mind as kind of a dart throw tournament option. Hart's fine. KCP should get more minutes too. But really, I'm trying to look to guys that are going to, facilitate and handle the ball more. So it's a total guessing game between Rajon Rondo and Lonzo Ball, playing hot hand between them. But they both should be more productive in whatever minutes they get, and then Brandon Ingram should be as well. He was absolutely awful against Golden State, but without LeBron on the floor, you should see a nice bump for Brandon Ingram.
All right, let's assume as we move on to shooting guard here that Harden is out. If he is out, we're going to have, wait for it, Austin Rivers, I'm assuming, taking on somewhat of a prominent role in our lives. Are we ready for that? Is Chris Paul ready to watch that from the bench again, Adam?
God, Austin Rivers sucks.
He played 31 minutes on Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be a good value play. It's just that he isn't good. But yeah, I mean, 3,400, it would, regardless, it's a good value play just at that price. But if Harden's out, then it's pretty much all the minutes he can handle. Obviously, Eric Gordon would be the primary beneficiary. He's only played 39 minutes this year without Paul, Harden, or Melo on the floor. But we've talked before how he really needs Paul and Harden off the floor so that his assist percentage goes up. He basically becomes a lot more ball dominant and has the ball in his hands a lot. So he would be the clear beneficiary if Harden's out.
All right. Anybody else from kind of the rest of the trickle down effect there? Gerald Green, PJ Tucker, anybody like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think all those guys would get a boost. It's still a tough matchup against Boston, but I think Green would get more minutes. Daniel House would get more minutes. I'm hoping Harden plays just because I want to go right back to him.
We'll get to that. I just thought let's get that one out of the way first.
Yeah.
All right. I was just looking because I wanted to see what his career assist percentage was, assist per game was for Eric Gordon. So in each of the last 3 years, I will say this year, and then it'll be reverse chronological order, but he's played 33, 31, and 31 minutes, and then he's got his assists have been 2.1, 2.2, and 2.5. So not nearly as high as I would have thought. But his shooting has been just horrendous this year by comparison. I mean, he's shooting 30% from 3-point range. That's down from 36 and 37 in the other 2 years. And he's a 37% career shooter from three over he's played 10 years. And then his field goal percentage, 37%. That's down 5% over what we would expect from him as well, from his career number. So there's got to be room for improvement there.
Yeah, and so he's played 397 minutes since the start of last season without either one of Paul or Harden on the floor. 36.4% usage and a 30% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. So, again, he's been terrible this year, as you said. But without either of those guys on the floor, you do get more peripherals from him, which is nice.
All right, so just now setting the stage, I did not realize that Harden was dinged up until I started doing first research here, pulling together everybody that was injured from Christmas. So this is from the analysis here. It's courtesy of DraftKings. Or the player card on DraftKings says Harden is listed as questionable for Thursday's game against the Celtics due to a bruised left calf. That is from Jonathan Fegan of the Houston Chronicle. And they're not saying the severity, and either the fantasy analysis is kind of saying, yeah, we don't know what the severity is. At least we have shoot around to see what's going on. If it comes out that he was limited or there are any issues in shoot around, that's the big red flag that should get us started to think about contingency plans for him. Otherwise, I'm kind of thinking he'll play.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well.
All right. Anybody else here at shooting guard? We've got one team. I should have mentioned that one team is on a back-to-back. That is Sacramento. They are playing Wednesday night. That game is not yet started as we record this. They're coming in and playing on, on Thursday. Every other team that's playing on Thursday played on Christmas, and the one team that played on Christmas that's getting the day off is Oklahoma City. But looking up and down here, it should be a high-paced affair with the Lakers and Sacramento, or a high-scoring one. What do you like here from Sacramento's backcourt?
Yeah, I mean, De'Aaron Fox obviously is really good. Buddy Hield has been getting big minutes as well. Even with Shumpert back, we saw 36 minutes last game. We're recording this before the game against the Clippers, so we'll have to see how that goes. But if we get another 34 to 36 minutes out of Hield, that would be a really good sign, because we had seen him kind of losing minutes with Bogdanovic back. It's a nice matchup. The price tag's a little higher than I would like, but certainly some upside there.
All right. Sorry, coughing fit. Hopefully the cough button was working there. Anybody else here at the two guards? Down below, of course, we do have both Lakers. We've got Hart and Stevenson. Andre Iguodala had a nice game for anybody that was one of his supporters on Christmas, where he dropped 23 regular points, 9 of 12 shooting, Adam. Pretty exciting there for him. He dropped 35 fantasy points. That's a good one. Anybody else here down in bargain bins, or shall we look to small forward?
I'll probably lose some more money on Chris Middleton. He's only 6,200 on DraftKings, and I've been going there a lot lately just because he can't keep shooting this bad. He's still getting minutes. He's just not producing. So I'll go right back to Chris Middleton against the Knicks and hope for the best.
What if he is now just a bad shooter?
I will lose a lot of money for the rest of the year.
All right. Now, for perspective, everybody, he's shooting 41% on the year. He's a career 45% shooter. He has not shot less than 44% any year of his career. So this is definitely a bit of an anomaly here, and starting to be concerned. I don't think it's – I mean, you would like to think he's going to work his way out of it, Adam. I agree with you. He's a talented player that contributes across the box score. So we'll have to see what happens. But – I may have to step off the train until I see a little bit of an improvement here.
It's not even just this season, though. It's like the last month. He started out this year. Over the first month, he was actually shooting better than last year. He's just been incredibly bad lately.
Let's see. Over his last 5 games, 37%. Not too hot. 26% from three-point range. That's not good, but hey, we've watched it with Belicha. You've watched it with a bunch of these guys. Sometimes they get in little, we call it funks, but it does. Just because someone's shooting poorly doesn't mean they're a horrible shooter per se. I mean, we've watched Klay Thompson go down to below impossible to phenomenal to now he's back down, but on his season-long numbers aren't bad. So I don't know. It just doesn't feel good going against Middleton here. Gosh, it feels like we just saw this game, Adam. Oh, we did on New Year's. This is sort of the home and home. We've got New York heading up to Milwaukee here, and this will be the 4th time these teams have played this season. Looking up and down the remainder of small forward, which is darn near everybody, Giannis had one heck of a game in 35 minutes there on Christmas. 30 points, 14 boards, 3 assists, 2 blocks, 4 steals. He was outstanding. He has just been having his way with the Knickerbockers this season, averaging just shy of 38 minutes per game and just shy of 67 DraftKings points per game. We have a lot of the stars on the slate, assuming Harden plays. Let's let LeBron, we'll let him go. But is Giannis your tip-top option at 11,100 on DK?
It depends on Harden. If Harden plays, it's still Harden for me. If not, then yeah, I love Giannis. It's just that I don't think he's in the same category as James Harden when Harden's playing without Chris Paul.
All right. Talk to me. Anybody else that looks intriguing? You got Kevin Durant, who, as we've mentioned, gets a little bit less time with Steph Curry on the floor. That's good for him. Jimmy Butler here going in against not an easy matchup against Utah. You've got Kyle Kuzma, who should be one of the several beneficiaries of some LeBron minutes and usage and scoring. What do you like here at the mid-tier?
Yeah, so I mean, Kuzma and is Brandon Ingram not small forward eligible on DraftKings anymore? I think he's a small forward on FanDuel.
Ingram is point guard, shooting guard now on DK.
Okay.
That's new.
But I just wanted to touch
anyway. Yeah.
I just wanted to touch more on the numbers for those two. Kuzma's played 168 minutes this season without LeBron on the floor, 27.5% usage rate. He's averaged 1.08 DraftKings points per minute. Ingram has played 141 minutes, a 30% usage percentage, 18.5% assist percentage, 1.23 DraftKings points per minute. So I think it's nice for both of those guys. I like Ingram more. But, Kuzma I think is perfectly fine. One other spot that stands out is Bielitsa. Obviously it's another one to keep an eye on how Sacramento's rotation goes against the Clippers. But with Marvin Bagley out, it gives him at least, first crack at having a good game and getting minutes, because there's no guy behind him that's on a mandate to play 28 minutes a night. So, I think he's still a little bit too cheap.
All right. And then we've got a bunch of discount guys. This is where you're going to find your facilitators that help you work out your lineup. We'll be looking at guys like Jay Crowder, PJ Tucker. Of course, Belisha will be in the mix. We have Bogdanovich. He is on the back-to-back, but he has been solid and is kind of that number 2 guy now for the Kings, so don't lose sight of him. You can get all of this information as Adam breaks it down in the deep dive article for Thursday. So let's move here along to power forward. Of course, darn near everybody on DK these days is either small forward, or power forward center. The 2 guys that, as I'm scrolling all the way down the list, I don't even know that they play. We've got Jonah Bolden is power forward only. And then that looks like it's about it, Adam. Yikes. Oh, I'm sorry. I wouldn't want to forget about Tyler Kavanaugh, even though he hasn't played yet this season.
I forgot about that name.
Goodness gracious. The world is your oyster here, Adam. What would you like? Let's start with, Draymond Green at 6,100. What do we do with that price?
I'm going right back to him. It's just too cheap. It doesn't feel good rostering him, especially because if you're like me, you don't really like rostering him anyway, just because he doesn't really score that often. But the price tag is just so cheap, and you can't get too bogged down in how guys have done lately, because everyone sees the same thing, and you just end up, you just end up making mistakes if you do that. So $6,100 for Draymond Green. If you played him, if he was in this matchup at this price tag every day for the rest of the year, you would make money by playing him. So I like Draymond. Hopefully it goes better than Christmas Day did. Noah Vonleh, 5,600 on DraftKings, a little bit of a price bump from Christmas Day, but the same matchup we had there, and I still like him a lot for all of the same reasons. For one, as long as he can stay out of foul trouble, he is in line for an uptick in defensive stats because he's the primary defender on Giannis. And then another perk of being the primary defender on Giannis is that you're needed on the floor and you're going to play a bunch of minutes. We saw 33.2 minutes on Christmas Day. I would expect him to play somewhere in that range again. But also because of the way that the rotations go, we saw 25 minutes from Cantor on Christmas Day, and that's exactly what I expected. I expect it to happen again here. The Knicks closed with Noah Vonleh at center, and he's been very, very productive when he's played without Enes Kanter on the floor. You see pretty sizable uptick in his usage, his rebounding, and his points per minute. So expecting Vonleh to play a bunch of time at the 5 in this matchup makes him a really appealing play as well.
Looking. Nobody overly exciting at the very bottom. Scrolling up, though, back to a bunch of these small forward crossovers. Again, Crowder, Tucker, those guys are fine. We had Wilson Chandler come back on Christmas, played 40 minutes. He had missed about a week, but came back strong in that game, which, of course, mostly came at the expense of Mike Muscala and Furkan Korkmaz, some of those other tertiary guys. Gosh, that might be about it here, unless we want to look at Kevin Durant specifically. This will be the second time he has gone up against Portland. Last time was phenomenal, 32 points, 9 boards, 7 to 6 assists, and he had 5 combined blocks and steals. That got him to 61 DK points. So just want you to know that he had a perfect shooting game for the most part, shooting 62%, hit 4 or 5 threes, and had 5 combined blocks and steals. Don't know that we'll see that, but 9,300 in a spirited game. I got to like this. Would you look to play?
Do you have a date for that Portland Golden State game?
I do not, but I can get one. If you're going to play those, both those teams, or pardon me, if you're going to play him or Curry, would you come back with somebody from Portland while I look up the date for that game?
Yeah, if you're playing them both together, then I would. If you're playing them individually, I don't think you need to, just because the game can stay competitive in enough different ways. But obviously, if you're playing both of them and you can find a way to the problem is that it's tough to get Damian Lillard in with those two guys, and that's obviously who you would want. McCollum and Nurkic would be the second and third plays. But it's a perfectly good spot to at least try and mini stack this game because both teams are very concentrated in where their production comes from.
That game played on the 23rd Golden State won 125-97. I'm just looking to see if anybody pertinent was missing. No Steph Curry. I'm assuming that's what you were looking for.
No.
No Steph Curry and no Draymond in that game. But
I just wanted to see how many minutes. Did Mo Harkless play?
Mo Harkless did play. He played 7 minutes.
Okay, never mind. I'm thinking there's a chance that Harkless gets. He's only 3,300. I'm thinking there's a chance he gets more minutes for defensive purposes.
Well, Harkless had been. Remember, he had some minutes limits. I think he had some sort of core injury during that time. That was just the second game Harkless had come back after missing from October 27th through November 20th. So he had missed 3+ weeks. So your thought actually may come to fruition because he played, which will let you expand on it. In that first game back on the 21st, he played 13 minutes, then he played 7, and then he played in the teens for 3 games, and then he started getting some 20s, mid-20s the rest of the way.
Okay, yeah. Also from Portland, Al-Farouq Aminu at 4,500, I think is still too cheap. Should be able to play a bunch of minutes in this spot.
So I'm assuming you were going to say that you thought Harkless may get more time on the floor, and at that price, if he gets 20 minutes, it's reasonable. Okay.
Yeah, I mean he's not a great per minute guy, but if you're going to get 26 to 28 instead of like 22, I think that 3,300 is a little cheap.
All right, well, let's go to the pivot position, get on out of here, and hopefully the good people are back to work, at least those who are not getting the week off. At center, of course, we're starting off at the top. Joel Embiid, major drop on most sites, down to the next couple guys here, which is going to make things interesting. We've got Clint Capella, has been outstanding. We've got Rudy Gobert, who's always intriguing. He's going to have a tough matchup there against the front court of Philadelphia. Of course, you got Willie Cauley-Stein coming in on a back-to-back. Yusuf Nurkic, Adam, I rode and died with Nurk on the holiday. What do you like amongst our top players at this position?
Yeah, that was a pretty disappointing game on Christmas Day, but he's 6,400 and will probably still be underowned, and we can go right back. So, I really like him.
You can go alone with Middleton. I'm going to be there with you with Nurkic. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. So, I mean, I like Nurk, obviously, Embiid if you can get there, but I would try and find the money for either Giannis or Harden if you can. Clint Capella is still too cheap, especially if Harden plays. If Harden's out, I think it is kind of scary for Capella just because he's so efficient in the pick and roll with Harden. I'm not convinced that losing Harden and Chris Paul would bode well for Capella. But if Harden's in and he's only 7,700 on DraftKings, I think he makes for a pretty strong option with a ton of upside. As does Rudy Gobert, who was only like 6% owned on Christmas Day, went for 50+ points. Now he's facing Joel Embiid, which gives him plenty of upside for defensive stats. But also, it hasn't been as good an individual defender as Embiid is. It hasn't been a spot to stay away from for DFS purposes. So I think that Gobert is a good play. Also, Willie Cauley-Stein's a good one. It's once again a pretty deep mid-range at center.
All right, last thoughts to think about. We have Zubac, who's going to most likely be in our lives as long as JaVale McGee continues to be out, and Tyson Chandler is dealing with that sore back. I did not play Zubac on any teams that I know of on Yahoo or on DraftKings, and I basically broke even. I won about 3.5%. There was a stack correction that had me winning 10%, and then once that went away, it went to 3.5. So I feel lucky is the point. And I came out by going a different direction and still did not lose because he has had 3 phenomenal games. He has also only missed 5 shots in those 3 games. He's gone 9 for 10 on Christmas, 8 for 12, 8 for 10. I don't think we're going to see that shot volume going forward. And even if we do, it's hard to see him continue. Maybe he'll get the 5 for 10, 6 for 10, but it's hard to see him continue just being perfect. He has had multiple blocks in all 3 of those games. I do want to play him against Sacramento, but I do want us to sort of temper our expectations. I think him approaching 28 to 31 is a more likely outcome in this matchup than it is with him flirting with 40 fantasy points for a third time. What are your thoughts for Zubac as we get on out of here?
It's a really appealing spot if he's going to go because it is a big Sacramento front court. I had concerns in that game against Golden State. They ended up not coming to fruition, and it hurt me. But that was a game that very easily could have gone small. The Lakers played a traditional center for every single minute of the game, which is not what I expected, but it's what they did. But here against the Kings, it's exactly what I expect because the Kings are basically going to play 48 minutes of Willie Cauley-Stein and Kosta Koufos. So there's no reason to think, especially with LeBron out and Kyle Kuzma needing to eat up more wing minutes, there's no reason to think that Zubac and Chandler don't play 48 minutes, or McGee and Chandler, or whoever. So whoever is playing center for the Lakers, I like.
Yeah, we want to be cautious here. He's not going to be Boban, but he's not also going to be amazing for this continued run. Enjoy it while it's there. This is another solid matchup. And like you, my thought was, gosh, I think a lot of people are going to be on him. I thought we'd see more from Draymond Green. I thought there was a chance we'd see, the small lineups with Jerebko, and it wouldn't be to Zubac. But guess what? I was wrong. So happy to have survived that one. But if I had him on a couple lineups, probably would have had a very nice day for myself. Live and learn. You can't always be results focused. If you had a good reason for doing something and it's sound and other people do not think you were incredibly foolish for doing it, it was probably the quote right play. So you got to be careful from time to time there, because we can get lucky on the wrong plays and we can have the right ones not work for us. Any final thoughts, Adam?
Just to add on to that, if other people do think what you did was foolish, then just convince yourself you're smarter.
There is always that. When I win, it's because I was brilliant. When I lose, it was just one of those days, Adam. It was just one of those days. With that, gamers, hopefully everybody made it safe to work. You can check us out on all our platforms, particularly as we get ready for Week 16 NFL. There will be a free article there for Yahoo. A reminder, they're running their third straight $1 million baller. Last week, that fell 1,500 shy of filling. It'll be interesting to see if that was because of the holiday or if that was just sort of a trend. In any event, they're still paying out $1 million. They are only taking in $750,000. We'll have an article on the homepage for that one for free. If you sign up using promo code AWESEMO, you will get a match of your first $30 of your first initial deposit in Yahoo player points. Those are usable immediately for any contest. So if you sign up with $30, you could get yourself 3 entries at $20 a piece into that big contest. With that, gamers, good luck.